Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Lora Rolling and this is part 1 of the Snowing Snowmen ornament tutorial. This is the Snowing Snowmen ornament that we are making. It is so cute with all the little snowmen falling. And today we're going to be doing the triangle called the landing. We just have a few materials to get ready, so let's get them listed and then we can get started. Let's go. So the beads that we're going to be using in today's video are all 11-0 Miyuki Delicas, and I have opaque light sapphire, white pearl, silver lined gold, and opaque black. I'm just going to call this blue, white, gold, and black. We're also going to need some beading thread and a beading needle, and I like to use the Eslon Fire in the color Crystal, and I have the 4-pound. You can also use 6-pound thread. And then I also like to use a size 10 beading needle. You can use a size 12 if that's what you have. For implements, I like to use long nose pliers, and I cut my thread with scissors. I also use the fire method to end my tail, and I'm going to show you how I do that today. And then we're also going to need one of these 2.36-inch plastic crafting ornaments. We're not going to use it in today's video, but to complete the project all together, you're going to want to get your hands on one of these. I sell them individually in my Etsy shop, or you can buy them at your local hobby store in the 12-pack. Alrighty, that's what we need to start this project. So let's pour our beads out and thread our needle with about 3 feet of thread, and then we can get started. Okay, so I have threaded my needle. Now I'm going to pick up my first 3 beads, which are 3 blue beads. And then I'm going to pull those beads down to the bottom of the thread, leaving about a 6-inch tail. Now I'm going to tie a square knot, which means I'm going to cross over, and then I'm going to pull my tail through. And then I'm going to cross over on the top, and I'm going to pull my tail through again. So you should have what looks like a little snowman. And then I'm going to put 2 fingers in the bottom circle where the beads are, and I'm going to just pull the top circle tight into a knot. Then I have my little tail right here. I'm not going to touch it to the flame. I'm just going to get it super close, and that's going to melt a little bead into the end. And that little teensy bead is enough to catch. So keeping my 2 fingers inside that loop that has the beads in it, I'm going to pull on the long thread while I'm twisting that circle loop until that tail knot touches the long thread. And then I'm going to take my thumbnail and I'm going to pull on the long thread and pull that knot down towards the beads until they turn into a tiny little triangle of beads. And so this is what you have now. And that completes the first row. How easy was that? Okay, starting row number 2, we're going to pick up 2 blue beads. And we're coming out of what looks like this bead. If the knot is in the center of these 2 beads, just kind of tug it over to one bead so that it looks like it's coming out of one bead. And then we're going to sew through the bead that it's not close to. And then we're going to try to get those beads to sit right on top of the two beads that they're closest to. Now I'm going to pick up two more beads. One is going to be blue and one is going to be white. Now we're coming out of this bead. I want to sew through the next bead. Once again, trying to get those beads to sit right on top of the beads that they're closest to. Let's pick up two more beads. These two are going to both be blue. Coming out of this bead, we're going to sew through the next bead and we're going to sew through the bead right below that one too. When we sew through two beads, we're going to refer to that as stepping up, which means that we have now placed our thread in position to start the next row. So we've completed row number 2. Let's start row number 3 by picking up one gold bead and one blue bead. Coming out of this bead, let's sew through the next bead. Now let's pick up one blue bead, and we're coming out of this bead. We're going to skip the one that's set in and we're going to sew through the one that's sticking out. That is our up bead. Now let's pick up two blue beads and sew through the next bead. Still making sure that those beads sit right on top of the closest beads. Let's pick up one blue bead, skip the down bead, and sew through the up bead. Now let's pick up two blue beads and sew through the next. And pick up one blue bead. Now this is the last bead in this row, so we're going to skip the down bead. We're going to sew through the up bead, and we're also going to sew through the bead right below that one. Sewing through two beads means that we are stepping up and ready to start row number 4. Let's pick up two gold beads and sew through the next. Let's pick up one blue, sew through the up bead, one blue, and sew through the up. Two blue beads and sew through the next. One blue and sew through the up. One blue and sew through the up. If you notice, I'm turning my work as I sew. It just makes it easier to sew because I'm very right-handed. And we're making a little triangle with our beads. So each point of the triangle is what I call a corner. And each corner has two beads. So let's pick up two blue and sew through the next. One blue and one blue. This is the last bead in this row, so let's skip the down, sew through the up and the bead right below that one. We've now completed row 4. Let's start row number 5 with 2 blue beads, one blue, one blue, one blue. At the corner, we'll pick up one white and one blue. One blue, one blue, one blue, two blue, one white, one blue, and one blue. This is the last bead in this row, so we're skipping the down bead. We're going to sew through the up bead and the bead below that one. Completing row 5, let's start row number 6. If you notice, I am going off of a pattern, and you are able to grab that pattern, download it, and print it immediately. And you can find it in my Etsy shop. You don't have to go off of the pattern like I am. It just makes it so much easier for me to see it in print. So if you're like me and you like to just see it in print and go off a printed pattern, then go ahead and grab your pattern in my Etsy shop, and I'll have it listed up there somewhere, maybe down here. You don't have to, though. You can just follow along with this video if that's what you prefer. So whatever makes it easier for you. Alrighty, starting row number 6, we're going to start with 2 blue beads, one blue, one blue, one blue, one blue, two blue, one blue, one blue, one blue, one blue, at the corner we'll pick up 2 blue, one white, one white, one blue, and one gold. Sew through 2 beads, and now we are in position to start row number 7. Let's start with 2 blue beads. One blue, one blue, one blue, one blue, one blue, at the corner, 2 blue beads, one blue, one blue, one blue, one blue, one blue, at the corner, 2 blue, one white, one white, one white, one blue, and one blue. Sewing through 2 beads. And now we get to start row number 8. Let's start with 2 blue, one blue, one blue, one white, one blue, one blue, one white, at the corner, let's pick up 2 white beads, one white, one white, one blue, one blue, one blue, one blue, at the corner we'll pick up 1 white and 1 blue, one blue, oops, I got stuck on something and winged my bead across the table. One white bead. That happens more often than I want to admit. One white, one blue, 1 white, and 1 blue. Sewing through 2 beads, and now we're ready to start row number 9. Let's start with 2 blue beads, one blue, 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 two white, one blue, 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 two blue, one blue, one white, one black, one white, one white, one white, and one blue. Sewing through 2 beads. I only got through 1, so now I'm going to sew through the second one. And now we're ready to start row number 10. Let's start with 2 blue beads, one blue, one white, one blue, one blue, one blue, one blue, one blue, one white, two white, one white, 1 blue, 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 2 blue, 1 blue, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, and 1 blue. Sewing through 2 beads, and now we get to start row number 11. Let's start with 1 white and 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white. At the corner, we'll add 2 white beads. One white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 white, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue. At the corner, we'll add 2 blue, 1 blue, 1 blue, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, 1 white, and 1 white. Sewing through 2 beads, and now we get to start row number 12. Let's do the question of the day. This is a winter themed ornament. I'm thinking about doing a Christmas tree as our next winter ornament, or a candy cane. Put down in the comments what you vote for. Do you vote for a Christmas tree next, or a candy cane themed ornament? Let me know. It's important to me. I want to know what you want. So just put it down in the comments. Alrighty, let's start row number 12 with 2 blue beads. One blue, 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 one white, one white, two white, one white, one white, one blue, 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 one blue. At the corner, let's add 2 blue, one blue, one blue, one white, one black, one white, one white, one white, one white, one blue, and one blue. Sewing through 2 beads. This completes row number 12, and now we get to start with our connecting rows. If this is the first triangle you've done with me, there are connecting rows or connecting beads on some sides, and then there are not connecting beads on others. And so in this particular triangle, we're going to have no beads on this side. We are going to have beads on this side, and we are not going to have beads on the top. So to cap our corners, we always have to start with one bead, and this one is going to be one white. And that caps the corner and it turns it into a point. Now, to make it easier for me to sew through my beads without picking up beads, I'm going to flip my triangle over. And now it'll be easier for me to sew through beads without picking up any new beads. We're just going to sew through all of the beads all around the edge of this quadrant, all the way through until we get to this bead right here. And we're doing this to hide the thread. We don't want to see our thread at all, so we're going to sew up each bead. Now you can sew through any bead that you want as long as you're hiding your thread and as long as you end up at that top point. So I just really like to follow the edges. Sometimes you can even go through two beads, but if you want to pick random beads, you can do that too. It's just kind of how I like to do it, is to follow this line. And because there's like this little kind of air pocket in between the quadrants, it just makes for a much easier sew through. The needle fits through perfectly and it's not tight. Yeah, so let's get our way all the way up until that top. And then we'll be able to cap that corner also. So we have sewn through all the beads, and we are now coming out of this corner bead. We're going to now cap it with one white bead. And now we are ready to add our connector beads. So let's start with one white. One white, one white, one blue, 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 and one blue. We are now at the third corner. Let's add one white bead to cap this corner, turning it into a point. Now we have all of our corners capped. We have our connector beads added on the one side that we need them. Now we're going to sew up without picking up any new beads. We're going to sew up 6 beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, we don't want to get our thread caught. And 6. And now I'm going to zigzag, making sure that we're securing this bead. If we didn't do this zigzag a couple of times, this bead would be loose and it might possibly fall off or get loose, and just it won't make for a perfectly tight ornament if we let that one get loose. So we're zigzagging down one bead and then up the next bead. And then we're going to sew up the next bead and up the bead above that one, hiding our thread. And now we're going to zigzag again. We're coming out of this bead. We're going to sew down the bead right next to it and up the bead right next to that one. And then I'm going to sew through 2 more beads, hiding my thread. And now I feel like this bead is super secure. It's not going to come loose. And so now let's cut our thread. I'm going to pick up the thread with my long nose pliers. And then I'm going to use my scissors to cut my thread as close to the bead as possible. And now we have completed our number 1 unit, which is called the landing. You only need 5 of these, so go ahead and do this 4 more times, and I will see you in a second. That was so much fun. Thank you so much for being here and beading along with me. Remember to like and subscribe and hit that bell button so you're notified when the next video comes out. I can't wait to see you there. Thanks for watching.